Lucien Armand, Switzerland's renowned real estate developer, arrived at Lausanne station 3 hours earlier than planned. His meeting in Munich had been cut short, and it was rare for Lucien to see the sky over Lake Leman so clear. He tossed his coat onto the back seat and quietly drove his coupe toward his forest-side estate in St. Sulpice, his mind momentarily at ease after weeks of exhaustion from a grueling project bid. The surroundings were so still that the crunch of gravel beneath the tires rang out sharply. Lucien switched off the engine, grabbed his briefcase, and savored the cool, fresh June air. Just as his hand touched the gleaming brass door handle, a scream shattered the silence. "Don't open the door?" From the pine grove at the edge of the forest, a girl burst out barefoot, dust-covered, her hair matted with sweat. Her brown eyes, frightened yet resolute, locked onto him. Lucien froze, the instinctive caution of a businessman used to facing ruthless media kicking in. But there was something absolutely certain in her gaze that made him set aside his doubts. "What's the matter, child?" he asked, trying to keep his voice calm, eyes scanning the area for his security team. They hadn't arrived yet, he'd come back too early. The girl panted, pointing at the oak door. "There's gas inside. I heard a valve turning around midnight, but no one believed me. If you flip a switch or light a flame." Her words broke into gasps. Lucien's heart pounded. The estate's high-end security system had never flagged any gas leak. He leaned in and sniffed, faint but unmistakable, the sulfuric stench of industrial gas. This couldn't be ignored. He dialed emergency services. The girl stepped back behind the pine trunk, eyes still fixed on the threshold as if watching death itself. The regional fire brigade arrived in just 8 minutes. Wearing masks and carrying gas detectors, they got to work. One team member signaled the gas valve in the wine cellar had been almost fully opened, the ventilation duct sealed with tape. Probability of explosion if any spark occurred, 99%. The fire chief leaned toward Lucien. "You'd have been gone if you'd opened that door a few seconds earlier. This was no accident." Lucien swallowed hard. He was used to courtroom disputes, but this was a straightforward murder attempt. Signing off on major projects had made him plenty of enemies, but none had ever acted this boldly. He turned back to look for the girl. She was still half hidden behind an old rosebush, shivering from the cold but not retreating. He approached slowly, lowering his voice. "What's your name?" "Anya." "Anya, how did you know something was wrong?" She bit her lip and ran a hand through her tangled hair. "I sleep out in the woods. Last night, I saw 2 men with hoods go into the cellar entrance. They carried something, then I heard metal clicking and smelled gas. I went to the local police, but they said wandering kids play pranks. Early this morning, I came back, saw your car, and got scared." She trailed off. Her feet, scraped and bloodied, stood out starkly against the white gravel. Lucien understood then. This wasn't some miracle of coincidence, but the outcome of many nights she'd had to take shelter in the woods, ears trained to detect the unusual. Not perfect timing, Anya had simply been there. A mix of emotions churned in him, gratitude, guilt, wariness. He slipped off his coat and draped it over Anya's small shoulders. "You must be cold. Come inside and rest, all right? The fire brigade's still checking, but the living room is safe." Anya hesitated, then nodded, eyes still scanning the surroundings as if afraid someone might steal her only escape. The living room felt large and overly bright compared to her thin frame. Lucien reheated some leftover cauliflower garlic soup and placed the bowl near the gas fireplace, its valve now securely shut. Anya ate quietly, each spoonful swift and neat, her face not daring to show any pleasure. Lucien placed a water bottle in front of her. "Where were you before you came here?" Anya just shrugged. "Everywhere. Sometimes Zurich, sometimes Bern. I stay wherever no one kicks me out." Lucien fell silent. The Verde Heights resettlement project in Bern, funded by his own company, had once faced backlash for forcing low-compensation evictions, leaving dozens of families displaced. Could Anya have been one of them? He didn't dare ask. "Do you have any family?" Anya murmured. "Yes, but they don't look for me anymore." Her answer was evasive but painfully so. A police siren sounded at the gate. An inspector stepped in and took a quick statement. When questioning Anya, she curled up and gave short replies. Lucien noticed the inspector's look, a homeless kid. He cut in. "She's my guest. I'll vouch for her for now." The inspector raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. The sabotage was clearly the greater concern. As they left, Lucien turned to Anya. "We'll find who did this. But first, you need a safe place to sleep. Stay here tonight?" Anya gripped the chair tightly, eyes drifting to the staircase leading to the vast bedrooms. She inhaled deeply. "If you don't lock the door, I won't. And you can keep the spare key." For the first time since she'd emerged from the woods, Anya smiled, just a little, but enough to soften the space around her. That night, in his walnut-paneled study, Lucien reviewed the camera footage. Two figures had slipped through the side gate at 2:11 a.m. They covered the lenses, disabled the alarms using an internal code, an inside job. He clenched his fists. A former employee? A disgruntled partner? Verde Heights? Anya appeared briefly at the edge of the frame, curled up behind a concrete wall, small-bodied, but eyes that missed nothing. Lucien turned off the monitor. He looked up at the black window pane where the pine forest embraced the home that had long been cold and empty. Tonight, somewhere in the trees, perhaps Anya had left behind her torn bag and chosen to sleep on an old sofa no one had used in years. For the first time after many seasons of contracts and deals, Lucien felt truly home. Dawn slipped into the living room through the Armand estate's floor-to-ceiling glass wall. Anya lay curled up on the long sofa, Lucien's coat pulled up to her chin. She did not move, only a steady breath feathered the cushion. Lucien stood by the staircase, still holding an untouched cup of coffee. He had been awake since early morning, but he did not want to wake the child who had saved his life less than 12 hours ago. On the kitchen counter lay a paper napkin bearing a few crooked lines, the ink unsteady as if written by a hand and used to pens. I didn't steal. I was just hungry. Thank you for not chasing me away. Anya. Lucien picked up the note, his fingers tightening involuntarily. How long had it been since anyone in this house had left a handwritten message? He set the cup down and checked the security system again. The technicians had reset everything overnight. The basement window where the intruders had entered was now welded shut. Yet the knot of suspicion inside him remained. The name Johann Free glared from the screen. A former assistant, dismissed after a discreet dispute over Verde Heights finances. In the company's monitored personnel folder, Lucien saw that Johann once held credentials for the auxiliary cameras. Sure enough, the system log showed that last night's camera shutdown command had been entered with Johann's old code. Lucien leaned back in his chair. A lake breeze stirred the curtains. The faint scent of cheap soap lingered, the scent of Anya. A child no one sought, living in the woods, warning him of an assassination plot he never spotted, now asleep in his own living room. This was no coincidence. Anya woke close to noon. Lucien had prepared a late breakfast, bread with butter and fried eggs. She hesitated, seeking permission. Lucien smiled. Go ahead. No one charges for food here. She tasted a small bite, then ate faster, neatly, yet betraying a hunger long endured. Lucien set a water bottle before her and sat opposite. Did you sleep well last night? Anya nodded, then whispered. The best since January. January? The last time I slept indoors. Lucien frowned, then changed tack. Before, what did your mother do for work? The word mother tightened around her for an instant, but she answered quietly. She was a cashier at a supermarket, then a cleaner in a high-rise complex. Which complex? Verde Heights. Lucien set his cup down gently. The impact was not an explosion but a gear clicking into place. This child was the living consequence of his own project. Did your mother apply for relocation assistance back then? She did. No one replied. Someone said the letter was lost, someone else said the decision was final. Mother told me, give me 2 more weeks, I'll find somewhere else. Her voice was steady, neither resentful nor pleading. One day she went to look for work and told me to wait at the bus stop. I waited until evening. Then through the next day. Lucien closed his eyes. He needed no more questions. In a rush, clean-out moved forward to meet the schedule. People like Anya's mother had vanished without anyone looking back. That afternoon, he unlocked a small former meeting room and opened an old filing cabinet, the few surviving paper archives from that year. The file for Block B, Unit 19 listed the tenant, Angela Reyes. The eviction notice was dated exactly 2 weeks before her disappearance. Behind the contract copy lay an unstamped envelope in handwriting. Please give me more time. My daughter is only 8. She needs a place she can call home just once in her life. I'll repay every franc if necessary. Angela. Lucien sat on the floor, hands shaking. The words, hurried yet clear, were not a cry for help but a final plea. That evening, Anya sat on the windowsill, legs crossed, clutching her faded backpack. Lucien brought her a slim plastic box, the old letter case. He opened it, drew out Angela Reyes's letter, and wordlessly handed it to her. She unfolded it, did not cry, she simply laid a hand on the signature. She read in silence, then closed the letter and held it to her chest. Where did you find it? In the archives. Somewhere I should have looked from the start. Anya nodded faintly. No accusation, no forgiveness, just recognition. Lucien bowed his head. Anya, I can't undo what's happened. But from now on, if you wish, this house is yours. Not temporary. No conditions. She studied him for a long moment. Then, for the first time, her voice was unguarded. I want a room. With my name on it. It doesn't have to be big, but it has to be mine. Lucien smiled. Tomorrow we'll start renovating. And you'll choose the nameplate. The steady tap of a hammer on the doorframe blended with the morning light glittering off Lake Lehman. Lucien carefully fixed a small wooden plaque to the white door of a second-floor room. A room that had long stood empty, like an untouched corner of memory. Engraved on the plaque, in simple letters, Anya Reyes. There was no Armand. None needed. That name alone was enough, real, clear, worthy, on a door closed for safety, not for exclusion. Lucien stepped back to admire the result. A pale gray, pine wood nameplate, the carving imperfect but full of intent. Anya stood on the staircase, hugging the roomy sweater he had bought that morning from the village shop. She stared at the plaque for a long time, then approached and traced each letter, as though afraid it might vanish. Have you ever had your name on a door before? Lucien asked. Yes, she said softly. In a fourth-floor flat. But a few weeks after it went up, we had to leave. Mother said, don't get attached to things that come off easily. Lucien swallowed. It struck him how children like Anya were never allowed to feel anything permanent. This one won't come off, he said gently. Unless you take it off. Anya nodded slowly. I won't. Her room was not large, but it was bright. A south-facing window caught daytime sun and, at night, the wind in the pines. Lucien had let her choose the furnishings. A deep blue circular rug, a small aspidistra. Because it endures like me, she said. An empty bookcase. He asked, what books would you like? Comics, she answered without hesitation. And books about animals. Mother once said I'd make a good vet. Lucien smiled. Then we'll visit the bookstore this week. You can choose. That afternoon, Anya sat in the back garden, reading a library book amid the grass. From a distance Lucien watched, phone in hand and plans swirling in his head. The project was called Maison du Lac, an affordable housing community to be built on the old Verde Heights land. This time, no high-rises, no sky-high margins, no rush. He had already sent the first sketch to the local council, signing not with the company name but simply Lucien Armand. He'd sent another copy to Marco Free, once the loudest voice among the displaced residents. He'd added one line, I'm rebuilding, this time so people can stay, not be pushed out. That evening, after Anya finished dinner and washed the dishes with practiced ease, Lucien left a small note beside her orange juice. Tomorrow we're going to see a site, but a home for others, not for us. Would you like to come? Anya read it and looked up. Is it? A home like my old one? The same, except it won't be locked, and no one will snatch the key. And I get to give feedback? Lucien nodded. You're already a survival expert, aren't you? This time, Anya smiled not only with her lips but with her eyes, the eyes of someone who knows her voice counts. A thin mist covered the sky next morning, clouds softening the eastern horizon. Lucien and Anya stood on a wide lot outside Vevey, the former Armand high-rise site razed in the first redevelopment wave. Only cracked concrete slabs remained, a few sawn-off utility poles, and a rust-stained sign. High-rise development Armand Dev. Someone had spray-painted 2 words across it. We lost. Anya glanced at footprints stamped in the mud. More than 30 families lived here, Lucien said, eyes fixed on the sign. Now no one remembers their names. I remember, Anya whispered. I spent one night here, after Mother disappeared. Lucien turned, silent for a long moment. Anya, are you sure you want to be involved in this? People will object. Ask who you are, why you're here. I don't need them to remember my name, she replied steadily. So long as they listen. They parked beside an old municipal community center where a closed meeting of city officials, former residents, and 2 consulting observers was underway. Anya sat beside Lucien, saying nothing, ears tuned to every word. At the head of the table, a salt and pepper-haired man with keen eyes and deeply etched lines spoke. I'm Marco Free. 10 years ago, you told us this place would be a showpiece of progress. He tapped the tabletop. We became a logistical detail. Why are you back? Looking for absolution. Lucien nodded, offering no defense. I'm here to fix things. Not just with words. The elderly plumber beside him, now a soup kitchen volunteer, muttered. Last time you drew pretty maps. My son still sleeps in a van. Anya lifted her head and met his gaze. I've slept on park benches too, she said softly but clearly. And I think if a place once made people lose their homes, it ought to be the first place rebuilt right. Marco narrowed his eyes. Who is the girl? Lucien answered slowly. She's the one who kept me from walking through a booby-trapped door. She lived in the old block. She's someone I owe. Just as I owe you. Silence settled over the room. Eventually Marco exhaled, less stiff than before. What do you want from us? Lucien unrolled the design. Not a PowerPoint slide, but an A3 sheet hand-sketched in pencil and watercolor by Anya. One-story homes nestled among vegetable gardens. Narrow paths shaded by trees. A public library at the center. No fences. No electric gates. No Armand logo. Across the bottom, in careful script, Maison du Lac, for those once forgotten. That afternoon Marco led Lucien out to the stone corridor. Once a children's playroom, now patched with temporary roofing. He offered an unlit cigarette. I once thought about torching your car, he said, as casually as discussing the weather. Lucien didn't smile. I understand. Marco studied him. You're late, but maybe not too late. Lucien turned to him. I'm not asking for forgiveness, just partnership. Marco nodded slowly. Then we partner. But know this, people here don't need charity. They need rights. And they'll have them from step one. On the drive back, Anya leaned her head against the window, silent. Lucien checked the mirror. You okay? She gave a small smile. I was just thinking. It's the first time adults argued and I didn't feel invisible. Lucien nodded. Because you're not invisible. Next time, you'll stand at the front of the room. A week after the town hall meeting, Anya's hand-drawn plan for Maison du Lac, its watercolor edges slightly smudged, was taped right in the middle of Vevey City Hall's main lobby. Not behind glass. Not after an official unveiling. Just a strip of crooked tape on the community bulletin board. And strangely, no one took it down. A municipal worker walked past, paused. A mother carrying her child gave it a glance, then turned back for a longer look. A young urban planner leaned in to read the final line written beneath the sketch. For those who were once forgotten, the drawing and signed, unstamped, without logo or seal, became a quiet focal point. And then, as if triggered by instinct, people began to talk. By Monday morning, the local paper had a headline. Lucien Armand returns with a social project. Beneath the title was a photo, Lucien beside the blurred sketch. Behind him, barely visible, the faint yellow of Anya's sweater and her eyes, half hidden beneath messy bangs. The article was laced with skepticism. The man once accused of displacing 23 families without compensation now seeks to rebuild the very site he demolished. Is this redemption or a rebranding strategy? Lucien read it over breakfast while Anya worked on her second sketch at the kitchen table. He didn't hide the paper. He laid it flat in front of them. She glanced at it. They called you the man once accused. That means they haven't forgiven you. I'm not asking to be forgiven. Only that they look at what we're doing now. Anya paused, looked at him steadily. I think sometimes people don't need to forgive. They just need to see that you didn't run away again. Lucien leaned back in his chair. He said nothing, but something in his eyes quietly unlatched. That afternoon, the city council convened earlier than scheduled. This time, the audience included not only former residents, but also investors. Among them, Eric Valden, a northern real estate executive who had once bid to turn the Maison du Lac site into a luxury resort for foreign clients. He stood in a gray pinstripe blazer, voice cold as stone. We've invested hundreds of thousands of francs into the previous bidding phase. And now Mr. Armand wants to scrap the master plan in favor of a student sketch and call it urban policy. A few polite chuckles rippled from the back rows. Lucien didn't flinch. He pulled from his briefcase a scanned, officially stamped copy of Anya's original drawing and placed it on the council table. I'm not here to reclaim market share. I'm here to return land to its rightful purpose. Whispers broke out. The council chairwoman, Elise Montaigne, Lucien's former classmate from university, tilted her head. And you intend to fund this from your own pocket? From money I earned the wrong way, Lucien replied, and with help from those like the girl who drew this. A beat of silence. Elise nodded slowly. Then I'd like to hear the voice of the artist. If she's present. Lucien turned. Anya was standing at the chamber doors, sweater sleeves pulled over her hands. She walked to the podium quiet but steady. No one expected her to speak. But she did. Not from notes, not rehearsed, but clear, unwavering. I was evicted from 3 different places. Once, my name was taped on the door and then peeled off like an old bandage. But when I drew this, I thought if a grown-up can build something big enough to push people out, then they can build something small to invite them back. No one moved. I didn't draw it for him. She nodded toward Lucien. I drew it for my mother. And for the next kid waiting at a bus stop that no one returns for. The chamber held its breath. Eric Valden frowned, preparing to object, but didn't. Elise gave a small nod. Statement noted. As they stepped out of City Hall, a light rain was falling. Lucien opened an umbrella, but Anya tilted her face upward to catch the droplets. Do you think we'll lose? Lucien gave a faint grin. For the first time, I don't care about winning or losing. I think you're winning. Why? Because you didn't run. 3 days after Anya's speech, her drawing appeared in the Voices of Young Citizens section of La Voix de Veve. No one forced Lucien to give interviews. But for the first time, the public didn't see him as a ruthless real estate mogul, but as the man who stepped aside so a child could speak. Shortly after, a letter arrived at his company's office. A marked brown envelope. Elderly handwriting. No return address. The first line read, I once knew Angela Reyes. She wasn't just someone who lost her home, she was someone who helped another person not lose hope. Lucien read it 3 times. At the bottom, a landline number with a time. 7:30 p.m. Friday. I'll be waiting. At the appointed hour, Lucien sat alone in his office, phone connected to the internal recorder. After 3 rings, the line picked up. A woman's voice, raspy but not cold. Is this Lucien Armand? Yes. I'm listening. My name is Celine Huber. I used to be a nurse at the Prazryan temporary shelter. Angela Reyes once came there with her daughter. I remember her because she didn't ask for anything. She asked if I needed help mopping the floor. Lucien's throat tightened. Celine continued. The night she disappeared, I was on shift. Angela said she was going out to find part-time work. She left her daughter in the waiting area. But she never came back. Lucien asked softly. Do you know what happened? A pause. I have no proof. But a man was lurking around the shelter that day. Later, I realized he worked security for the Verde Heights construction crew. Lucien's fists clenched. Celine's voice softened. I can't be sure, but I believe she found out something. Or someone wanted her gone. A woman like Angela with no documents, no protection, can vanish like water into cement. Lucien said nothing. Celine added. I kept something. Angela gave it to me, said, if I don't come back, give this to my daughter if you ever get the chance. She vanished soon after. Until I saw her child's drawing in the paper. There was the sound of rustling paper. You can come get it. But only if you hand it to her. No one else. I will. Thank you. No. I should thank you. For finally facing this loss without turning away. The next day, Anya sat on the stone steps sketching a revised layout for the housing complex. She used crayons. The lines wobbled slightly, but the colors glowed with quiet warmth. Lucien returned from Prazryan holding a worn envelope, its corners bent, paper yellowed. Not heavy, but it carried weight. He sat beside her. Someone sent this for you. Your mother left it. Anya didn't open it immediately. She looked at him. People usually send letters when they're gone. Sometimes they send them before, because they hope to come back. She opened the envelope. Inside, a quarter-folded note, a thin copper necklace, and a small photograph. The photo showed 2 people, Angela holding little Anya, both grinning in a park by a wooden bench. In blue ink beneath it written, You're the only reason I ever dared to dream long-term. Anya didn't cry, but her hand trembled as she touched the necklace. She never wore it. She said she was saving it for when it felt safe. Lucien whispered. Then maybe, now it is. Anya closed her fingers around the necklace, nodded faintly. That night, she placed it in her plastic keepsake box beside a gray stone, a toy ring, and the house key Lucien had given her. For the first time, she shut the lid without her hands shaking. Lucien stood before the glass-and steel tower on Rue du Mont Blanc, Geneva, a symbol of the years when he had believed that development was the only summit worth climbing. The 21st floor, former headquarters of Armand Dev. Still looked the same, walnut walls, Italian leather chairs, and the cool gleam of white lights. But what made his chest tighten wasn't the architecture, it was the name behind the frosted glass door in front of him. Adrien Marchand, Chief Executive Officer Armand Dev, current. Not just a successor. An old friend, once Lucien's classmate. The man Lucien had handed full authority to when he resigned from the board 3 years ago. Adrien didn't rise when Lucien entered. He simply looked up from his tablet and smiled slightly. Lucien, now I see why the shareholders keep calling. Lucien didn't sit. We need to talk, Adrien. Oh, I agree, Adrien said, folding his device. About your idea to turn Lot 2B into community gardens and low-income housing? You've knocked 2 points off our stock price with one newspaper article. Lucien stared at him. Do you remember who signed the final clearance order for Verde Heights? Adrien smiled sharp-edged. We both did. But I pushed the timeline. And I was the one left to face the media when you suddenly withdrew for personal reasons. And now you're back as the penitent knight. Lucien's voice hardened. I'm not here to atone. I'm here to clean up the wreckage I once left behind. Adrien stood, stepping closer. He was slightly shorter, but his eyes held equal weight. What you left behind wasn't just buildings. You left a whole system. And now you want to dismantle it for some stray child. Lucien didn't respond immediately. In his mind, he saw Anya at the podium speaking about the bus stop where her mother never came back. Then he answered, each word landing like stone. She was the only one in that entire system who didn't turn away when there was real danger. The rest of us? We signed the orders, slashed budgets, tore names off doors, and called it progress. Adrien laughed, but his face darkened. So what do you want? A monument to failure? Or my permission to keep dragging this company through the mud? Lucien lowered his tone. I don't need your permission. Maison du Lac won't bear the Armand Dev brand. I'll fund it myself and use what little voice I have left to ensure the city doesn't forget. He paused. Then more quietly. And if you try to stop it, I'll release the internal documents, everyone. Including the recording of you ordering accelerated clearance despite unresolved safety conditions. Adrien's face fell. Silence. Then, without blinking, he picked up an untouched glass of wine and said, You know, Lucien? I used to think you were a dreamer with a taste for luxury. Now I see you're just a man who wants to be forgiven without remembering why he was forgiven to begin with. Lucien shook his head. I don't want forgiveness. I just want no more people to die because we stayed silent. He turned and walked out, leaving behind the gleam of polished growth figures that no longer made him proud. That evening, Anya was shelving books in her room, children's stories and animal guides, each one she'd handpicked from the village bookstore. Lucien tapped on the door. She looked up. You look tired. Argued all day, he said with a dry laugh. With someone who once thought I was a friend. Anya tilted her head. Why do adults fight so hard just over whether to build a house or not? Lucien sat on the edge of her bed. Because if we build it the right way, some people might have to face how they tore the last one down. Anya nodded thoughtfully. Then she pulled out a folded sheet, her latest sketch. It showed a row of small red-roofed houses nestled together, smoke rising gently from chimneys. In the bottom corner, 2 people, one tall, one small, stood side by side in the rain. No umbrella. No shelter. Just standing there together. What's this one called? Lucien asked. Anya replied. The ones who stayed. By the end of July, sunlight streamed onto the rooftops of Maison du Lac, where months before there had been only dry earth. The wooden frames of the first 3 houses now stood tall. Lucien organized a small community gathering, a casual open-air event, lemonade, fresh pastries, round tables, and a whiteboard for people to write their hopes for the new neighborhood. No formal invitations. No corporate banners. Just a handwritten note by Anya taped on bookstore windows, bus stops, pharmacies, and church boards. If you ever lost a home or know someone who did, you're welcome. They arrived early, set up tents. Anya wore a yellow scarf to mark her as a greeter, notebook in hand. They waited. 1 hour. Then 2. No one came. The pastries cooled. The lemonade sweated down the sides of the glasses. Anya said nothing. She sat quietly, doodling on the whiteboard. Lucien folded up a few unused chairs. Then, a voice behind them. I should have come sooner. Lucien turned. A woman in her 50s, silver-streaked hair, wrinkled shirt, and a faded fabric tote. She continued. My name's Sophia Marit. I lived on the ground floor of Building A, Verde Heights. Unit 1. Lucien stepped forward, his voice rough. Thank you for coming. Sophia looked around the empty yard and used tables, untouched food. I almost didn't. I figured no one remembered me. Anya rose and approached her, offering her notebook. Can I write your name down? So if there's ever a seat at Maison du Lac, there'll be one with the name Sophia Marit. Sophia smiled, eyes glassy. Who are you? Lucien answered. This girl once lived in rooms where names were ripped off doors. Now she's finding them again. Sophia sat, broke a butter cookie in half, took a sip of lemonade. I knew your mother, she said to Anya. Angela. She once lent me her cast iron pot when I moved in. We never got to return anything before we were forced to leave. Anya gripped the hem of her dress. Do you remember anything she said? Sophia looked up at the sky, then nodded. Yes. We were talking on the balcony the day they posted the eviction notice. Angela said, I'll teach my daughter not to fear the wind. Because houses may blow away, but people must not lose their roots. Lucien said nothing. He simply sat beside Anya and let her lean her head on his shoulder. As the sun set, 3 more people quietly entered the yard, an elderly man with a cane, a tattooed young man, and a woman with 2 children. No speeches. No applause. But they came. And that was enough. That night, Anya tucked her yellow scarf into a desk drawer. In her plastic box, she added something new, a small whiteboard tile on which she had written in marker. Sophia Marit, Unit 1. And for the first time, she began collecting other people's names as if each one was a brick in rebuilding homes for those who had never been allowed to return. Monday morning. Overcast skies cast gray light over the cobbled roads leading to the outskirts of Lausanne, where Anya and Lucien stopped at the gates of Saint-Cyr Cemetery. No one had invited them. But Celine Huber, the nurse who had once held Angela's letter, had sent a short message. She may not have come back, but there's a place she reached last. Attached were the coordinates of an unmarked grave in the far corner of the cemetery reserved for the unidentified or unclaimed. Anya walked slowly between moss-covered stones. Each step thickened the air. At section 6A, Lucien stopped. A small stone. No engraving. Just a tin plaque nailed to the earth. Femme inconnue, retrouvée le 7 Mars 2018. Unknown woman, found March 7, 2018. Anya knelt. She said nothing. Lucien stood behind, hands clenched. He knew the date. It matched the missing persons report for Angela Reyes. Anya placed a hand on the cold edge of the plaque. In the wind, she took from her backpack the copper necklace her mother had left behind. She laid it on the grave. I don't need a name on the grave, she whispered. I just need to know she didn't leave me. She just didn't make it back in time. Lucien felt something break, quietly, colorless, like a thread of the past stitching itself closed. Anya looked at him. If this really is my mother, then at least I have somewhere to remember her. But what about the others? The ones without any names at all? Lucien thought. Then maybe there needs to be a place where their names are written. Not a grave. Just remembrance. Anya nodded. To her, it wasn't abstract. It was real. Like a list. A wall. A map of the forgotten. That afternoon at Maison du Lac, Anya sat before the large whiteboard in the lobby. On it, she wrote the names she remembered. Angela Reyes. Sophia Marit. Due Han, Vietnamese, lived on 3rd floor. Emily and daughter Launa. Otto, the plumber. Lucien passed by and paused. What are you planning to do with these names? Make a plaque. Mount it on the central wall at Maison. Anya answered. I don't want only the living to have homes. The lost should be named at least once. Lucien said nothing. He picked up a marker and added a name. Adam Armand, younger brother. Anya looked at him and nodded gently. No need to ask. No need to explain. Just another name left behind. That night, as the lake wind brushed the windows, Anya sat on her bedroom floor. Her old plastic box sat open on the desk, now nearly full. She laid each item out. The plastic ring, the gray stone, her mother's photo, the necklace, Sophia's name tag, the first handwritten nameplate with her own name. Then she folded one final note. Maison du Lac, home is where your name is spoken and no one is evicted from their dreams. She closed the lid and labeled it. Not to hide. To remember. On Monday morning in August, the first houses at Maison du Lac were completed, not with polished steel or reinforced concrete, but with terracotta brick, red tile roofs, oak doors, and low hedgerow fences. No main gate. No surveillance cameras. Only winding paths, shared gardens, a community bulletin board, and doors left unlocked during daylight. At the opening ceremony, there were no ribbons. No speeches. Lucien and Anya stood side by side. Marco Free, who once considered burning Lucien's car, was the first to speak. He didn't praise. He just nodded and said, "This should have been here 10 years ago. But fine. We have it now." Then he stepped aside for a child. Anya stepped forward in a white shirt, hair tied neatly, holding a handwritten note. "I'm not here to speak for anyone. I just want to say the names of those who aren't here today." She looked toward the nameplate beneath the central oak tree, etched in bronze. Maison du Lac, built by those once displaced, for those never allowed to stay. She paused, breathed deep, then read. Angela Reyes, Otto Kepler, Dewey Hahn, Adam Armand, and everyone who never had the right to a key. She folded the note quietly. No applause. No one left. That afternoon, the first residents moved in. A single mother with her daughter. An elderly man with his son. A young man who had lived in his car for 2 years. Lucien stood at the back, no speech prepared. When asked if he would manage the property, he simply said, "I've built too many places where no one could stay. It's time someone else held the keys." And he handed over all management to a resident council, Marco, Sophia, and 3 new families among them. No one called it a charter, but it was sturdier than any contract Lucien had ever signed. That evening, Anya stood before house number 4, the last vacant home. Lucien stood at the door holding the final key. "You haven't picked a house yet," he said. Anya looked at it, then shook her head. "I don't need a house anymore." Lucien frowned, confused. She smiled. "I already have one, upstairs at the estate, in my plastic box, on the nameplate beneath the oak tree, in the place you never locked from the beginning." Lucien paused. Then, silently, he handed the key to the woman behind them, the grandmother with twin granddaughters. "House number 4 is yours, if your girls don't mind sharing a room." They all laughed. The girls took the key like it was treasure. That night, in the Armand estate, Anya sat by her window. On her desk, the old plastic box was now full. She unpacked it piece by piece. The toy ring, the stone, the photo, the necklace, Sophia's note, her first nameplate. Then she added one final folded paper. Maison du Lac. Home is where you are named, and not evicted from your own dreams. She sealed the lid, and labeled the box. Not to hide, to remember. Downstairs, Lucien sat in his study, gazing at a photograph of the opening day. A crowd of ordinary people. No logos, no lenses, no strings, just those who had stayed. He placed the photo in a frame for the first time without his name on the corner. Just one line. It began with a door that wasn't locked.